Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today we are finally going to drive the 325 IS for the very first time. Man, look at how dirty this fucking car is. I think I've washed this car once in like the 3 months that I've owned it, so I don't feel bad. It's silver. It looks clean all the time, except the glass. That looks terrible. Alright, so last time you guys saw the 325 IS, I had taken it out to clean it, wash it for the very first time. I kind of finished up with the interior, but the one thing I needed in order to actually take this car on its maiden voyage was power steering. So I have since received the power steering. I did go ahead and install it last night. I'll go over that quickly with you guys, and there's a couple other things I want to do before I put this car back on the ground and we actually go take it for a drive. If I can give a word of advice here, if you're going to overhaul power steering, maybe do it when your car's still taken apart. Because I just put this thing back together and then decided to do my power steering overhaul. I was just tired of spending money when this car was taken apart. I was like, I'll deal with power steering later. It's no biggie. I did it yesterday. It's not a terrible job, but on the E36, the power steering reservoirs are kind of buried under the manifold. You can see it here. So if you have a stock airbox, it would make it even harder, but really it's not that hard. Pull the intake elbow off, pull your throttle body off. That way you can get to the bolts on the reservoir. I will give credit to the E36 because on the E46 you can literally see on the oil filter housing, this is normally where your power steering reservoir sits on an E46, and that's like the only thing I can credit the E46 for. It's just so much easier for power steering if you have the reservoir here, and I know you can relocate it, and I considered doing that, but just want this car on the road. So going underneath the car, as you can see, we have a new this is the hard return line, and this was kind of a pain because it's not OEM, so the little bend that goes into the rack was just slightly off. So that took longer than it should have, for sure. Also installed a new pressure line here. So that's the line that goes from the rack to the pump. And then off of the pump here, on an M50 pump, there's normally just a banjo fitting for that, but on the M52, it's a standard hose clamp style fitting, which I actually prefer. So all new lines, new reservoir, new hard line, hard return line. And it's funny when you look at that, because normally when you jack up your E36, I swear, no matter who it is or what car it is, that thing is just covered in oil. So we'll see how long it takes for it to look like that again. So I had actually mentioned going with an M50 cover when I was assembling this. However, I believe I also mentioned, but the main problem with doing that, these coil packs actually mount in opposite positions that the M50 coil packs mount in. So if you're to swap covers, you'd also have to swap the coil packs. And I wanted to keep this cover only because these coil packs are brand new Bremmy coil packs, and you know, coil packs are kind of expensive, and I already had these, so I said, you know, I'm just going to use this cover. I regret it now because I think that's why this is, I think this is where the leak is coming from. When I was doing the power steering yesterday, I kind of looked, the block looked wet, and it looked like something was trailing down from the top of the engine, which I could only assume would be the valve cover. The oil filter housing looked okay. Everything else looked dry. It was just on the block, under the intake manifold pretty much, so I believe there's an oil leak coming from there. And I did, when I pulled this originally, I pulled this cover, there was a ton of RTV just everywhere, all over it. So this could very well be warped. Again, it's plastic, it's not an uncommon thing. So I hope it's the cover. It pretty much looks like it, and really that's best case scenario. I don't mind switching valve covers, it's not that hard. Alright, so I wish I had a better angle for everyone, but this is the best I could come up with at the moment, because I'm sure you'll understand. This thing is so fucking loud. Oh, that welded. Oh, dude, I'm getting in trouble with this. body roll is ridiculous. Jesus Christ. Okay, well, that was the first drive. Fuck. One thing I will say is that when I had swapped in the welded, it wouldn't rev past 3K, and it just did because I swapped the wheel speed sensor. So luckily that's what it ended up being. So it does rev past 3K. There's nothing funny going on there anymore. I don't have brake lights. I don't have reverse lights. It has no exhaust. It runs though. Time for gas because it's empty. Breaking up. Not sure why, or it was breaking up, and now it's good. I think, honestly, I'm hoping that it's just like pushing through, which actually I'm not hoping. I'm hoping doesn't necessarily help our causes in terms of driving this, but one thing I know for sure is that it fucking needs a muffler. It is so loud, man. Well, we did make it back, but let's check on the engine here. It was breaking up ever so slightly. When I had started it, after I'd taken the cinematics, I had started it to drive, and strangely enough, it just broke up like really bad. And then it cleared up, but it sounded fucking terrible. Not even like misfiring, just breaking up. Like as soon as it has an exhaust, it'll actually sound and drive hopefully more like a civilized car. But the suspension on this thing is so old too that it just has like excessive body roll. All right, welcome back. As you can see, I have the 325 IS behind me. You guys didn't get a video last week due to a rather unfortunate circumstance. I will be honest, initially I thought I completely blew this car up. That's kind of how it sounded. So yeah, it's kind of back taken apart again. I want to go ahead and go over what I think happened and what I'm going to do to fix it. I don't know. So whether it comes across on the GoPro footage or not, this was breaking up. As soon as I had you know, stopped with taking some photos and stuff, I got back in the car, started it, started breaking up really bad. Just fuel cutting like crazy, and started to freak me out. And then it cleared up. I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna go home, right? I'm only a mile away. I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of limp it home. So I pretty much just limped the car home. It was running and idling fine. Like, it would just go in and out of these cuts And you know, initially I was thinking it was a fuel cut, and it very well could be, because that's kind of how it sounded when I was driving it. It was definitely breaking up, but after I did some inspection, I'm pretty sure we were getting some major misfires, and I'll show you that in a second. But again, I got it home, it was idling fine, it was running fine, but any throttle input, it would just, I mean, it would cut, and that's why, I guess, why I was assuming that it was fuel, and why I think that it's possible that I have two separate issues. It just blows my mind, because this car has idled in my driveway for probably a collective of, you know, an hour up to temp, idling perfectly fine by itself, and then as soon as I get it out on the road, it's just like a slew of shit. So it's a total bummer, and that's why you guys didn't get a video last week, but I'm gonna go ahead and show you what I did, like, and what my discoveries are so far, and kind of what my game plan is moving forward. So when I got home, I really did think that, like, you know, I had some catastrophic failure. This oil cap was super milky around here. Of course, I've cleaned it since then, but I might still have a bunch of condensation in the valve cover. I'll have to check that out. But I had opened this, and it was just the milkiest, gross, like, thick film. So I figured that my everything, the oil, everything was gonna look like that, and we had like a head gasket issue, but the car never overheated. I never got an oil pressure light, never got anything weird. It just started cutting super bad. Now you'll notice this is not the original cover I installed on this M52. This is actually an M50 cover, and it's not actually installed. It just doesn't have a gasket. Of course, I have like 3 extra brand new M52 gaskets, but no M50 gasket, so I gotta order one of those, and I'll put this back together. But I did pull the valve cover gasket so I could look, you know, at the cams and the top end and everything, and it does check out. It looks fine in here. It looks super clean, actually. I did also, which not super stoked now that I know, but I drained the oil and it was super freaking clean. So I just wasted however much money on that, but I guess oil was going to be changed after 100 miles anyway, so just did it prematurely. Now it's pretty dark in here, so it's going to be hard to see, but I'm going to bring one of these out to show you. Kind of one of my weird discoveries here. It's going to be hard to see, but the boots literally split on this. Not only did they split, but the entire coil is like chewed, and it's like rusted. I have no idea how this happens. My only guess and suspicion is that it would be a ground issue, because these were brand new. These are brand new Bremis. You know, I don't understand how these coils could essentially like fry in the you know, I don't know how they could fry like this. It's crazy. So I've definitely never seen anything happen like this, but my only guess would be a ground issue, or the computer is telling the coil pack, like, constantly giving them power, I guess, and like, I don't know, like something's just stuck on and it's just delivering power constantly. I don't know. That wouldn't make sense though, because it was pretty inconsistent, and the issue did not start happening seemingly until I started driving the car a bit. So I'm thinking that it was a grounding issue, and the reason I think that, I was going to show you all the condensation in this valve cover, but it seemingly has evaporated or whatever the fuck. What I was going to note is that I only had one ground strap for all 6 coils. Now the reason I did that is just because that's how I received the engine, so I just, you know, assume that that is proper, sufficient ground. I can't actually find a clear answer on how many grounds I need, so I know that you need, I'm pretty sure now that I need 1 in cylinder 6 area and 1 in cylinder 1 area, so 2 grounds for the coil packs, and then for the coil pack harness there is the ground that goes to the mounting point, or the pull point for the engine. So I'm trying not to be extremely discouraged by this, but yeah, it's total bummer. I finally get the car for its first drive, and then, not that it's catastrophic failure, but it definitely made me feel that way for a second, and then, you know, it just makes a ton more work for, you know, something that I can't really explain. Like, I don't know why this happened, and I'm tired of problems like that. I'm tired of just kind of guessing, because with OBD1 cars, And I know there's a lot of keyboard mechanics out there, but almost everyone is always referring to an OBD2 car. These OBD1 systems are a little bit more simple. You cannot get nearly as much information from these cars, so there is part of it that I would argue is a guessing game. And that's kind of what I've been through with this car. I do prefer OBD1 just because I'm more familiar with it at this point, but it is something to remember that OBD2 and OBD1 are way different as in terms of diagnosing problems. The systems they're different. So as far as what I'm going to do next, I'm going to order an M50 gasket, install this M50 valve cover, and then we'll convert from plastic to metal, and I'll add the additional ground strap. I have extra M50 coil packs. I have brand new spark plugs. We'll just see with the extra ground if it does that again. This car is honestly just a nightmare. It did sit for like 10 years prior to my ownership, and I really do think that does play into it a little bit as far as fueling goes. I personally rebuilt the injectors, but I didn't have them flow tested, so I don't really know what like their efficiency was. I do have pink tops now, and I do have a known working fuel pump. So like, obviously the fuel pump works in this car, but as far as like how good it's working, I don't really know. So I have those two options, you know, the injectors and the fuel pump. I did put a brand new fuel filter in this car before I ever even started, you know, running it. So it's got a new filter, rebuilt injectors that shouldn't be leaking or anything. And then yeah, I can try a fuel pump and then try different injectors, I suppose, if it's still fuel cutting after I run through this. I don't know, I'm just fed up with this fucking car. It's been like 6 months at this point of me spending time here in the garage every weekend, which normally I wouldn't mind, but you know, there's no reward so far for this car, so I'm losing my mind a little bit. So again, apologies for no video last week. I kind of just wanted to like take a break from car shit and take a break from filming everything, and just let this sit, and I'll get back to it next weekend. I'm just gonna take a break this weekend, focus on other stuff. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. It was good, and then it got a little bad, but I don't think that it blew up. I really did think it blew up at first. I think we'll be okay. So with all that being said, thank you guys for liking, subscribing, sharing the video. Anything you do does help my channel grow, so it is sincerely appreciated. With all that being said, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.